Hey everyone, GingerBeardMark here. Just a quick note before we start this interview. I've updated GingerBeardMark.com. Is it a website? No, it's still not a proper website. But it is now a link tree with everything you need. So if you watch these and you want to listen to them, that option's there. If you listen to these and you want to start watching them, that option's there. If you want to get in touch with me, the links to my social media are there. If you want to support the show, the links to like merch and a Ko-fi thing, it's all there. So gingerbeardmark.com is basically a one-stop shop for me, GingerBeardMark. This week's guest is the awesome Matt Cargill from Sly The Family Drone, who's a noise musician. Like Sly are a noise band. But we get into like Matt's histories. Like Sly started as a one-man band and expanded. We go through that. Matt's history with music and all sorts of other stuff we cover, like their legendary live shows. It's all in there. So I really hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, Matt Cargill from Sly and the Family Drone. How are you, dude?
Good, man. Thank you. Yeah, all right.
It's 2023. It's the year we take those internet friends we made during lockdown and turn them into real people.
Actual, real life. It's happening. We're in the same room.
Yeah. After nice. Just like liking each other's stuff on Instagram for a couple of years. But yeah, I was like, obviously there's your style of music is. You can't learn a lot necessarily from you. It's not like you can pick up lyrics and be like, oh, okay, I get this or whatever. So I was thinking we just go in with like really basic stuff to start
of course.
with.
Yeah.
And so it's like my first thing is, what did you listen to growing up? Like, what was the music were jiving to?
I mean, when we were in the van today, we listened to the Spice Girls.
Oh, nice.
We were firing out a bit of Viva Forever. That was good. And then it was Who Do You Think You Are? I got the Spice Girls' first album for my 10th birthday. So it was pop music for a long time. Then it was bonkers, like happy hardcore mixtapes. We used to play them on the bus to school.
Yeah.
And then just probably I got a Guns N' Roses CD when I was very young. And then whatever, your parents play in the house.
Yeah.
Like my parents weren't super into music. Mum, like 60s and 70s pop music, basically. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. But then probably wasn't until I was like, that sort of era when you're a teenager where you start consuming loads more.
And you go like, this is mine.
Yeah.
There's like there's a few artists where it's like the first time I bought one of their records, I was like, I'm buying this for me. This isn't because my brother likes it. Or
exactly. Yeah.
I'm buying this because I like it.
Yeah. And I didn't have any older siblings, and the people I sort of hung out with in school or in my local like village were all a good few years older than me.
Yeah.
So the music didn't really translate. There was a few bits they were into, but it didn't really, so it was just whatever was around. But I remember buying, like, I think I bought Guns N' Roses' The Spaghetti Incident, which I didn't know was a cover album until quite recently. Or, well, years later when I was like, this is a Guns N' Roses song, what's this? And it was like Raw Power by the Stooges or something.
Yeah.
And it came with a bandana, which I still have. And unfortunately I'm not wearing today. But yeah, kind of bits of everything, you just sort of pick up bits. And then when I was, I don't know, like 15, 16, getting into real bands or whatever, and then sort of all changed from there.
Was the happy hardcore, was that like the interest in sort of electronic music? Is that where
I
that
guess
started,
so. I mean, just like an absolutely rinsing kick drum. And a like happy hardcore piano riff. All kinds of stuff,
Yeah. And then, so when did that transition into you wanting to make music? Was that like, did you do band, like, you know what I mean? Like a traditional sort of drums, a bass and a guitar band?
Was basically at school. I never really played, you sort of play around with like a bass and a guitar, but never any proper training or lessons, as people who've seen our band probably could tell. But I got sang with a mate's band. Was like, oh, do you want to, at school we were sort of 15.
Yeah.
And we did a few covers and then started writing our own. We did like a Manic Street Preacher song in a school assembly or whatever. And then like, well, this is cool. Let's carry on and do some of our own stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was in a band, like singing, whatever, vocals.
What's sort of genre is that then?
Noisy, post-punky sort of, I don't know. Some of it was, wanted to be Sonic Youth or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that. I don't know. Some of it was really fast, like kind of punk songs. And then others were kind of long drawn out, like almost spoken word sort of. Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty noisy and fun.
Yeah. So that the love of like noise started early then in your sort of music
I guess so.
creation.
Like it was basically, I've sort of talked about it before, but when I getting into stuff like Lightning Bolt, when I first had them, that kind of changed everything, and then turned me on to like loads of American, like US noise stuff, and then going to all tomorrow's parties, like ATP Festival.
Yeah.
In Butlins in 2005 and 6, I think, something like that. That basically blew my mind and changed my musical outlook. I'd not heard and then seeing people like Wolf Eyes, like really sort of heavy, weird, almost like industrial noise stuff, which I didn't know before.
Yeah.
Before it was like, Sonic Youth were kind of the pathway into weird noisy stuff,
gateway.
and before that was just like bands like Trail of Dead and like English guitar bands at the time, like 80s Matchbox and McCluskey and Akara Cult and stuff like that in like early 2000s. And then from there, hearing like Lightning Bolt and American noise stuff, and then it was like that's it now. And there was a really fruitful time in the sort of like early to mid 2000s, and a lot of them were coming over to England, and I'd go like get the train up to London to see those kind of things, like at Barden's Boudoir and stuff, and just going, well, this is totally mint. This is what I'm into now. And that's it.
I think it's amazing when you can find that, be it with like music or with anything, where you find something and you go, oh, well, this like feels like it was made for me, or it changes you in a way where you just like this suddenly something you had no idea about a day or two before feels like a key moment, defining thing of who you're going to be.
And it's really exciting finding that stuff when you that totally opens your mind, and you go and see something in it. Somebody come up to us last night after we played, and they we were playing with Boris, which like everyone was there to see them, big Japanese band. So they had no idea who we were, but there's people that come up and like, no idea what to expect, but I loved it and it blew my mind, and that's fucking incredible. Are you allowed to swear? Sorry.
Go for it. It's Dom Jolly said the word cunt, and then a little later in the interview said fuck and went, oh, can I swear?
Yeah,
like you said cunt 10 minutes ago.
You can't take there. That's the highest one.
But it's like, it's nice that, like you say, you're maybe becoming that band for some people, some people's gateway into noise, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd to sort of talk about yourself in that kind of way, but when people have that experience and come to it's incredible, because that's so special to me, and that's what I loved, and then when you get that back from people, that's incredible.
And then, like the live shows, as you were saying, like your live shows are kind of legendary. Or something. It's like very, like I think, they're very special, aren't they? Your live shows, and they are chaotic in the best possible kind of way. Yeah. And is any of that affectation at this point, or is that just genuinely? I mean, the love of like what you're doing and what's happening in the room.
I would like to, there's a lot of elements whereby Yeah, even more so in the early gigs, it was
Yeah.
like absolute carnage. And we, everything would be broken or on fire or blood or like somebody. I remember somebody where we used to play in Reading. They were like wrote on the press thing. It was like there will more than likely be blood, and that was probably true. Like something to get trashed and cymbals broken and people bleeding everywhere. And, but I don't know. I like that. Like we always play on the floor.
Yeah.
Amongst everyone. And that was, again, just through seeing, people like Lightning Bolt and going, well, this is way better than being the stage and us and them.
Yeah.
And I want to have that close intimacy with people and them to be right amongst it. And we have all our big amps right by us and you can physically feel it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the energy's so much better doing it that way. And it's more fun.
Yeah, I saw an American hip hop group like turn a gig around by doing that.
Yeah, great.
Doomtree, I don't know if you've
heard, nice, okay.
And went to see them in Birmingham, and they had it was like a small audience, and obviously there's like 7 of them on the stage. Yeah. And you could tell after a couple of songs they just weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
They had a little huddle on stage, then all of a sudden all of the rappers were on the floor, getting everyone to circle, and
Amazing.
The vibe changed.
Yeah, great.
And everyone was into it, and
Where was that?
It was like one of the the Academy 2 or the Academy 3. It wasn't a big venue either, but it was the vibe just instantly changed. Like, okay, there is something about that being on the floor with the.
Do you know that band Dialect, like American hip hop? They played here, I think, last year. And I think they were having a bit of trouble with the PA or the sound or something, and I think there was quite an atmosphere. And I absolutely love that band. And I did see them at ATP in those early years, and that was one of the most heavy things I've ever seen. Like super heavy bass, like really hitting you. The MC sounded amazing, and I think when for him, he's like, I want the show to be the best. I want it all to come across well.
Yeah,
and I'm not when the PA is bad or the sound is bad, and everyone's had that experience, but it loses a bit in translation. You don't have that energy, and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah,
and that specifically is why we started bringing our own PA and all our massive amps, was because people would straight up be like, well, you're a noise band, I'm just going to turn it down.
Okay, yeah.
And then it loses so much in the energy in that translation, and the crowd aren't feeling it, we're not feeling it. It's like, well, what are we doing? The power sort of needs to be there.
Yeah.
And when it isn't, it changes the atmosphere in the room and the performance.
You've got control over the whole situation then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can you've not got a third party.
No,
going, oh well, I think
sometimes it would be nice to have your own sound, and I've sort of tonight I was kind of tweaking it in the room myself. So we do have the house PA for a bit of additional the subs, that for the drum synth and to make the drum sound cool. But when you're at the mercy of a sound person who doesn't get it, or everyone's had a bad experience with a sound person, and I'm a sound technician in my job.
Yeah.
So I do, and I try to have. Yeah, it's mostly about trying to maintain that relationship and not just be a pissed off fucking sound engineer cliche. And you're like, well, I don't want you to have a bad experience. I don't want it to be stressful.
Yeah.
Let's make this cool, and you'll have a better gig, and and you won't hate me. So,
you've dealt with enough bad sound engineers over the years to know
exactly
what people want or what's going to piss people off.
Yeah.
It's you're the waiter that tips a bit more at the end of a meal because you know what it's like to be a waiter.
I feel like that's got to be the way you should do it, and everyone should. And if you're a fucking jaded, pissed off sound technician, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
I guess you get like that in any job, but it's I feel like half the battle is creating a good environment for people to work in, and the band are going to have a better time, and it's going to be a better gig.
Absolutely.
And I try, I would hope. We used to have falling outs with people, but less these days.
That's good. Keep your reputation clean. So there's 5 members currently in Sly the Family Drone.
Yeah.
So do you want to go through who does what?
Yeah. Well, it's been I would just say it's been like it started. It was just me.
Yeah, it feels like an ever-changing sort of...
I used to do lots of stuff with like cassette tape processing and making collage and sound design stuff, and then started playing a couple of gigs as that.
Yeah.
And I'd never played on my own at all, and then played a festival in like Hampshire, Winchester somewhere, in like 2008. And I got my friend who's a drummer I'll be like, well, I'll do the sort of rhythms and weird loops and noisy stuff, and you can drum. And I just we did that together, and then wanted to get Kaz in for free and was like, well, he's our other drummer. And then we've done that before when there's been like 4 drummers, and it sort of evolved from there. And over the years, it's changed quite a lot. People come and go, or people can't make dates, so we swap around. And so the sort of core format currently is myself. Kaz plays drums and electronics. Will also plays drums. We have 2 full drum kits and percussion. Ed, vocals and electronics, and James plays baritone sax, which is all submixed and processed through our stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, for tonight in Birmingham, James isn't here, so we've got a Gap Max playing violin instead. Okay. So we've swapped out the baritone for violin, which last night was really cool. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be great with her again.
I suppose because we should say you're playing here in Centrala space in Birmingham tonight, and they've been very kind enough to give us their back office to do this interview.
Yeah, great.
So keep
surrounded by some nice plants.
Yeah, there's a lot.
We should get a shot of the plants. Really. Yeah.
There was a lot more plants in here before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, so thanks to Centrala. I should have said that earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose with this, because are you essentially jamming live? Is that sort of how it works? It's hard to
kind of.
Yeah.
A lot it's semi-improvised.
Yeah.
In fact, it was mostly improvised. But our excuse me, records. We do like studio albums, which is basically us playing live in a room, but under like proper recording conditions.
Yeah.
And so but all of that stuff kind of comes from playing organically together. So we, when you're on tour and like when we practice and a bit comes out and you're like, and then it's quite organic and that might change.
Yeah.
And then they're little sort of touch points you might go to be like, okay, it feels good, this would suit, so you could do a certain bit within the set, and then that'll expand or contract depending how it feels in the room. And then we sort of just improvise around that, and then whatever is feeling good in the moment is where we might go, and it's essentially improvisation with that.
Yeah. And so is that like...
But specifically not a jam band.
Not a jam band. Yeah. No, yeah. That's
a big difference.
And that's what I was going to say. It was hard to sort of get across what I meant. Was like, it's sort of, it's organic, isn't it? It's like and sort of like you say, it's if it feels good, go with it, sort of thing. Where you could carry. It's like you say, it's like improvised stand up almost, isn't it? Where it's like, oh, that got a good reaction last night,
exactly.
So I might do it again and add more to it.
Yeah, and it feels bits can change, or you can like just sort of allude to a little bit or show your hand a little bit and then take it away, or move around that.
But not a jam band.
No, I mean last night the other band on the bill last night were like, oh yeah, we'd love to jam with you something. I was like, fucking no. Like, this isn't how it works.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it's something you talk about in a meme sort of way, is the concept of like noise life.
Yeah.
But within that, there seems to be like quite a good sort of tight community. It does like the whole noise scene. You seem to all like support each other.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's essentially a underground music community. Like any, I never really knew much about scenes, and in our town growing up, that just came from a place of going, well, nothing fucking exists. Like there aren't venues to play, so we just put gigs on in our local like football club, like in the function room, just because there isn't anywhere to play. And then eventually we, somebody had a PA system, or we put money together to get stuff, or the gear built up, and you just make things happen. And that sort of underground like DIY spirit is just going, well, we don't have the money or means to like pay someone to do it, so you just start it yourself and putting on things. So all our, you know, old bands when we were growing up, just that happens, and then you carry on doing that for 20 years because what else are you gonna do?
But yeah, like that, in that sense of like, well, we've got a gig, so do you want to come and play with us, or vice versa? And that sort of.
I think there are so many apparently. You know, I know you a lot of your interest with the sort of literary and stand up stuff. I think there's so many parallels with it, and like touring and the people you meet, and the way you engage with other people in, you know, the scene or whatever. And it's so cool because you sort of, we're coming out of a sort of post-pandemic era where it feels like so much has changed. But we were here at Centrala like I think it's nearly 5 years ago. Yeah, and haven't been here since. And now time just feels like it fucking doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But you come back around and you see the people that you've made friends with. And Rich that runs this place was like, you know, when you want to trying to get us come back for a while, and it, you know, sometimes just can't happen or for whatever reason. But they're friends you make from years ago, and then you just pick up where you left off, and that's such a great like spirited thing. And you all, you know, can, I guess with social media and that, you know, you sort of keep in touch a lot more. But for us, like, or me personally, getting to travel and meet people and make friends, you know, and we've got to do that like all around Europe, and that's one of my favourite things that I find most exciting. And if I wasn't in a band, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. And, you know, hadn't ever travelled before. I'd never been to Europe until we got to go on tour. Like I went with a mate's band and then started doing it with Sly. And then when we first got to go overseas, like, that's the dream. Yeah, you know, like, absolutely. It's, you know, that's really exciting, and hoping that it can continue. It's a little bit more difficult now in our post fucking Brexit era, but we try. Yeah, I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Is to keep going. Mm-hmm. ZD Grafters who were playing is a father and son duo, but the girl that's DJing, they're in a band together, and they're like 14, and they've been playing since they were 10 or something, or even younger. They started a band. So when we were here 5 years ago, they played on the bill as well. But they were like 9 or 10 at the time. They're called Hack 123, and they're totally brilliant, like songs about robots and stuff, but like really cool, like synth, bass and drums. Nice. They're brilliant. But yeah, we met them at Supernormal Festival in like 2012 when they were little babies, and we were playing like in the middle of the field, and all our drums were out and stuff, and the kids were like joining in at the end. And now Zach's like a 15-year-old lad and playing in a band, and it's like, so I find stuff like that really special, and that's really cool. You've seen that passage of time. Yeah, and it doesn't. You know, that's 11 years ago now, which seems absolutely ridiculous, but getting to do all that kind of stuff and then make those sort of connections and friendships, like that's, you know, that's really special. Yeah, it's like I was saying, it's like the sort of the doing it, isn't it, is a big sort of like. But how did it? Can I ask you, like, how did you? When did you just sort of go, oh, I quite fancy doing this? You've thought about it for a little while, and then like, I'll approach some cool people. Like I used to do a fanzine. Okay, like, and it was called Half a Pigeon, and it was just like interviewing bands and stuff and people I wanted to approach and whose work I loved, and I didn't know anything about anything. I was just like, I'll try and blag my way into a thing, but you know, you get to meet so many cool people. Well, it was basically, I wanted, like, I was doing sort of adventure videos, like the, you know, vlogs sort of style sort of things, and I was having fun doing them, but then it became like a grind, and they weren't getting many views and stuff, and then in hindsight, I know why it is now, but it's like Ian Lee, who I'd done a video about his late night show,
he was like, got in touch and was like, do you want to do an interview with me? Do you want to do an interview? And in hindsight, it's because it was like a month or two before he was going in I'm a Celebrity.
Right,
so he probably just wanted as much stuff out there as possible to direct people.
I didn't know that, actually. And I swear I've seen that video. Was it? You didn't talk about it?
No.
No, I was like...
No, because I didn't realise that that's why he was doing it. And so he was just like, do you want to interview me? And I was like, well, I don't really interview people.
Yeah.
And so that's why the questions are all stupid. If you watch that
see.
first one, it was like 2017 and all the questions are stupid.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed doing it, is the thing, like setting up the Tascam, setting up 2 cameras and editing back and forth. I was like, actually, I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, great.
And then so it was like a year later, I did one with Robin Ince. And then I think it was a year on for that, I did Epic Beard Man.
Yeah.
And that's where it sort of started properly, where I was like, actually, I enjoy doing this more than I enjoy doing the other stuff. So I'm going to just keep doing this.
Great.
And like I say, it's, for me, really, it's an excuse to just talk to people that I think are cool. And that's what it's become now. And that's why I don't care. This is all about me.
No,
that's about me.
Like every time when it's so good that it's a conversation, isn't it? And you end up talking about all kinds of stuff, and it's not necessarily the thing that you
It's not. So it was never. It was like, oh well, I get to talk to E&D, or I get to talk to, I was going to say Stuart Lee then. I can't keep naming people that have got the surname. Well, like Paul Putner and like some really cool people that's like, when you get a chance to sit down and have an hour-long chat with these people. But like the sort of fakeness of setting up some microphones and a camera means that you can have a chat with them for an hour, which is great.
Exactly. I love that Paul Putner one, because he feels like someone doesn't... I don't know, he's obviously done so much work and so many great things, but you don't necessarily see him a lot or hear him speak as, he's in character or whatever you see him on.
It's like Paul Garner was one for me, where it's like, I knew that would be good. And I was so glad when it came out that it was good. I was like, and no one chats to Paul. And Paul's been worked on so many cool things. I was like, I bet he's got some stories. And he did not disappoint.
Yeah, great. Very good.
And so, and then, so, plugs. Where do you want to send people? What have you got for sale? This is me telling you to advertise your scarf and your hat.
Yeah. Well, we've got merch. We've got record. Although not many records. We sold quite a lot yesterday, which was a pleasant surprise. But we've got, 3 records out, vinyl. And one just came out on the Quietus like a fortnight ago.
Oh yeah, there's the late. Is that the
late? So they do like 50, an edition of 51, I think, that are all like lathe cut, beautifully presented things, and a really great series of that. So there's like, lots of cool different people doing it, and we got asked. So that's coming, and that's one like 20-minute long track. And then we've got a new record sort of mixed and mastered. But I sort of feel like I don't know where it should live. And again, in this like post sort of pandemic thing, so many things have changed. Yeah. And everything's so much more expensive. And I don't know whether people are wanting to take the risk on things, or so many people have just stopped doing stuff or moved on, and the contacts that you had don't exist so much. Yeah. So sort of just trying to figure out like where that should go, or whether we just do it ourselves. We've put out recordings before,
it's just the outlay, isn't it? There's like I'm friends with some guys that own a record label, and it's it's obviously the dream is everything you release you want to put out on a lovely 12-inch vinyl with big gatefold, but it's just that costs thousands of pounds, and it's like, how do you make that worth guarantee that you're going to sell them to get it back or whatever? And it's like, it is great to be independent because you have that full control, but then there's no one else footing the bill either.
Yeah, I sort of feel, the experiences we've had with record labels before, some people, I feel like, well, it's in their interest to sell it as well. Yeah. They're not just like doing you a favour, unless it's like a tax write-off for them or something. But for us, I feel like, you want to sell them, we want to take them on tour and sell them to people. Yeah. And that is... when you meet people and they come up and want to buy your record after, we're like, that's perfect. And it's a thing to sell, but I'm like, we used to have, or I maybe still do, I don't know, people feel like we got a reputation of just being like a live band. Yeah. And then with the last like couple of albums, I was like, well, I want people to enjoy them as records and the music that's on them, not just like. So it is like a token you can take from the gig or whatever.
Yeah.
But I want we've had some cool reviews for them or whatever, and that's amazing. And I met somebody last night at the gig who come up to me, and he had the vinyl, and he was like, "I reviewed this when it came out, and now I've just bought the vinyl off you." And never met before, didn't know him, but came up and introduced himself. And like, yeah, getting to meet these people who've got no connection to, but they show some interest in what you're doing and want to review it positively, and like have nice things to say better about it. And it was cool to meet them and just like hang out for a little bit. But yeah, we try to keep making stuff happen and putting things out and getting to play and something like. And
you're on Instagram. You're on.
Yeah,
what
it's all there. Like the Bandcamp is the main sort of one, that's got all the links to the merch and everything. But on Instagram, I use quite a lot. We sort of used to have a proper website, but quite recently I think it lapsed, and then I forgot to pay for it. And I was like, I don't know if people even look at real websites.
Yeah, GingerBeardMark.com is just a link tree. It goes to my link tree.
Exactly. So I was thinking of just doing that. And we have got one that's just like on the Instagram. And I use that basically as a way to communicate to people. Like, I don't have a personal one, but I essentially use it as that. And people you get chatting to on Instagram, and you don't necessarily know, but you sort of build up some sort of relationship with people, and then eventually
weird comedy.
Yeah, exactly. But that's I love that stuff, and like I say, I feel that there's loads of parallels with the comedy and all the. It's all connected, we're all trying to make something happen. Yeah. In whatever way. Like Joe, do you know that band Hey Colossus? The bass player Joe, they just did a Quietest Thing recently, and he wrote a book about it was sort of under the loose term of like, these are 5 records, or these are a list of records that somehow connect all these stories. Okay. But essentially it's like a biography, or an autobiography even, of his experiences of being in a 20-year long band, and their experiences of putting it all out, running a record label, touring, the mad tales that happen, and incredible Turkish parties that you end up at 4 a.m. somebody breaks their neck from headbanging, or but his thing is about the pursuit of something. Yeah. And I have a sort of whatever that is. And my mum, years ago, we used to have a load of bands stay over, and I put on gigs at my parents' house. And we occasionally had people play in the house. Yeah. But it wasn't a big house. It was no big, smaller than this maybe. But she was like, "Oh yeah, Matthew does like to make a fuss." And then my friend absolutely cracked up at it, and he was like, "The fuss, that's what it is. It's the pursuit of the fuss." And that's just trying to make cool things happen and put on gigs and seek out these opportunities and people to meet, and experiences that you probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely.
And getting to meet people and people whose work you like and want to engage with them, and then you get to have a chat and hang out, then you're like, but I not putting myself in the company that you've worked with previously, but it's brilliant.
The thing they all have in common is I'm a genuine fan of all of, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is there's not one person I've interviewed for the sake of it really. I've always been interested in who they are or learning more about them and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that would just feel fake. It's I put out a podcast every week. Yeah. I don't give a fuck about any of them really.
Just need some content.
Exactly. Yeah. It's I'd rather I haven't put one out since February at this point, but it doesn't matter to me because I was really proud of that one. So why would I phone in something just to have it? Exactly. You know what I mean? Or talk to someone who it's because they've got a book out or they've got
exactly.
No, I would talk to someone that I'm actually interested in.
I mean, I remember a little while back you were like, oh, maybe we'll do it when you've got an album or something. Yeah. And we have just had a record come out, but I'm not necessarily it's sort of just happened, and it's in the ether. That's that. But the opportunity to, we're playing locally.
Yeah,
and here we
exactly.
are.
I was going to come over tonight, so it's like, I just had to stick some cameras
Yeah,
and mics in the booth.
Perfect. Yeah.
But no, thank you ever so much for talking to me, Matt. And
Thanks,
I
man.
genuinely recommend going and seeing you guys live and checking out some of the music online, because you've never heard anything like it. If you've not heard noise music before, it's it's definitely an experience.
I think the experience is, come and see it live, because like that's what it's intense and it's fun, and that's what we like doing, and hope some other people do as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks to Centrala again for lending us their back office.
Yeah, great spot.
You have to embarrass yourself, Matt.